Now, welcome to another Let's Watch Some Star Wars. This time it is the 12th and final episode of Andor Season 2 titled Jedha, Kyber, Erso. And as always, I will fire up this final episode. I'll start to watch it again. I'll pause it from time to time, put up a screenshot, tell you what I like, what I don't like, what's kind of going on, or whatever else happens to pop into my head. And so let's get right to the finale. So the episode picks up right where the last one left off. We have Cassian trying to convince Clea to come with them to Yavin, that you need to see the place you helped build. And she's very reluctant. She's like, I don't want to be a prisoner there. And Melchi is like, well, you at least got to come with us to tell them what you told us about the super weapon and all of that. But I think Clea is just afraid of change, really. Like, this has been her life for so long. Luthen has been her life for so long. Working like this, being his assistant, being this sort of constant for him, somebody who has kept him kind of in line as he maybe flounders a little bit here and there. I think it's terrifying to realize that is gone, that's over. Like, what do I do with myself now? How am I going to be helpful to this new rebellion when my entire life has been here helping Luthen for so long? Though, yeah, I do think she realizes that there is some animosity towards Luthen from the Yavin crew, let's call them, that they do not fully appreciate all that he has done. The fact that, as Cassian even tells her, you helped build that. You are responsible for Yavin. Without you and Luthen, Yavin is not there. And so you have earned your place there. You have earned the right to go there and maybe, relax a little bit and recover a little bit after everything you've just been through. You are a hero of the rebellion. We then see that the ISB has lost communication, and that is thanks to K2SO going into the Imperial shuttle and, disabling them, shall we say. And what I really like about all this, the tactical team going in, is that they're, actually being tactical for a change. I feel like a little too often in Star Wars, maybe we have the problem of stormtroopers just running into a situation, firing away, missing everything, and then just being shot down. Kind of makes the Empire seem like, not so competent. Which I'm not saying you can't show them as incompetent from time to time, certainly. We could even argue this story arc shows them as incompetent, though in different ways. But it's nice to see that, the Empire actually does have, skilled people who are not idiots and are trying to complete a mission without getting themselves killed. Begrudgingly, Clea agrees to go with them, and as they're leaving, that's when, of course, the tactical team shows up and hits them with a stun grenade. And I gotta say, this works really, really well. I mean, we know Cassian, Melchi, and K2, they're gonna get out of here just fine, or maybe not just fine, but they're gonna get out of here. But we don't know about Clea. There's plenty of tension here because the last two episodes, and really the whole series, has kind of built this character up for us. We are rooting for Clea. I think we understand she has just kind of sacrificed everything for the rebellion. And again, she does deserve some off time on Yavin, if you will. And so we're rooting for her to get away, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen. This is a show where anybody can pretty much die at any point, except for the characters that can't. And so again, there's plenty of tension here. They get pinned down, it looks bad, but of course K2SO comes to the rescue. He sort of gets his own hallway scene. At one point he picks up Heertz, Supervisor Heertz, and uses him as a meat bag, you could say. And then he takes out the others, and as soon as he rescues them, he says to Cassian and Melchi, I cleared a path for you, which, again, in that Alan Tudyk voice, is just humorous. I like that K2 in this final arc has brought that touch of levity to this thing. It's funny in the right ways because it's not trying to be slapstick humor or anything. It's just a droid who's been programmed a certain way who says things that are humorous. We then see them make their getaway. They get away in the U-Wing just as reinforcements arrive. And during this, we flash to Partigas from time to time back at ISB headquarters. And he's trying to get, obviously the reinforcements there as he's realizing things are going wrong. But unfortunately, the warrant about the infectious disease that got put out earlier has occupied all of the tactical units. And even though I appreciate the character, I like the character, I think Partigas is a fantastic character. You gotta love when he has this look on his face when he realizes this is yet another botched mission under his watch. This is another blemish in the last few days on his record, which I'm guessing is pretty impeccable until now. And even if it is, that isn't going to matter. It doesn't matter how much you have done before. It's what you're doing for me now with the Empire and the Emperor. He obviously knows he is screwed here, that he has failed for the last time. We are then on Yavin, and we see that Saw Guerrera is having a chat with the some of the council of the Rebel Alliance, and he's telling them, I wish you guys were as good at fighting as you are at lying, because he is insisting there are spies everywhere, that they are spying on him, and they do know that he is on Jedha and that he has been messing with the Empire there. He is hijacking Imperial transports, and Mon Mothma's trying to tell him that's making it worse for everybody. Eventually, Saw just ends the transmission, and Bale is like, the dude is crazy, but Draven is like, well, not exactly. We have had spies kind of probing his team for a while now. So in an odd sort of way, they are further driving Guerrera crazy or paranoid. And this all lines up very, very well with Rogue One, how we see him there and how he is insistent everybody's a spy, everybody's trying to betray him, though it's also just living in the shadows and doing what he has been doing for so long now. I mean, he goes way back. He is an OG. He is pre-Clone Wars he's been fighting, and immediately took up the fight against the Empire in shows like Bad Batch. We see him already standing up against them. Right after that, then, Cassian with his U-Wing returns, though the Council, the Rebels, they can't be sure that's even him, or that he's not compromised, or that he's not coming in hot, or who knows what else could be going on here. But they do, of course, let him land, and when they do, they realize, yes, it is just Cassian, and he now has Clea. That doesn't mean they're happy. They're obviously rather upset. Draven is very upset, and Cassian's trying to tell him, like, hey, we have important information, and he's like, you better have something. Cassian is then taken before the council, and he tells them that Luthen is dead, which gets a little of a reaction out of Mon Mothma, but the others really don't seem to care all that much. He's then telling them that Luthen had a spy in the ISB for years, and that this spy told him something about Gorman and Kyber crystals and Galen Erso, that there is some sort of super weapon that the Emperor's energy program has been a cover for something else. And Bale and Mon are like, that project did get a ton of funding and we never had any real oversight. We didn't really know what they were doing. So that is certainly a clue something is there, but the Council overall seems very skeptical about this, mainly because they do not trust Luthen. And it's a frustrating scene to watch, not only because obviously we know the Death Star is a real thing, that this information is real, but the dismissal of Luthen is very frustrating because as Cassian is even trying to tell them, like, nobody is here without him. You guys haven't given a fraction of what he has given, and yet here you are talking down about him. Like, who do you think you are to say these things about a guy you didn't know as well as I knew? And Cassian is like, I knew him. I knew the good and the bad. And it's the reason that I know him so well that I can believe this information. Bale is then like, well, when is the last time you talked to him? And Cassian says, a year ago when I helped rescue Mon Mothma. And I love the look on Bale's face, and he kind of acknowledges like, oh, yeah, that was the time my guys were gonna betray me, and they were actually, one of them was an ISB plant, and it all would have gone south if not for you and for Luthen and his information, which was accurate then. Cassian is then told he's going to be confined to quarters, and as Draven is escorting him actually to the infirmary because he was granted permission by Mon Mothma to see Clea, he's telling him that his contact within Saw Gerrera's group, Tivik, has tried to contact 3 times in the last 10 hours, and Cassian's like, hey, we need to look into this right now, and Draven is like, you're in no position to make demands. And I mean, you can understand their point of view, you can understand the perspective of the council, that they need people to follow orders, to follow the rules. You don't have a true functioning rebellion. I mean, they already have enough problem with Saw Gerrera doing his thing, but you don't have a rebellion if everybody is just doing their own thing. This isn't the way to take down the Empire. You need structure, you need order, you need people willing to follow orders. And so you get their perspective, but at the same time, again, it's kind of frustrating how they dismiss Luthen, that they look down upon the guy who is, again, responsible for so much. Anyway, Cassian then visits Clea and kind of apologizes for the less than hero's welcome she's getting and tells her, I'm doing all I can here. I know you believe this information is real. I know Luthen believed it. I believe it. But it's a lot for them to swallow. It's a lot for them to take in and to risk putting resources towards this, when, again, they don't necessarily like the source or trust the source of all of this. And their information, their spies, their network has told them that the ISB is on to Luthen, which was true, and that there's every chance they were just setting him up, that they wanted this information to get out there, and for the rebellion to chase their tail, if you will. There's then a very brief scene of Mon going to Vel. They are, of course, cousins, and she tells her Luthen is dead, which gets a little bit of a reaction out of Vel. I don't really know. We don't know what their kind of friendship status was as the years went on. She, like pretty much everybody else, eventually did leave Luthen, and we don't know how they ended up together, how she came to work for Luthen in the first place. Would love to someday get that story, but either way, Mon is like, Cassian has come back with some rather curious information, and I need you to go spy on him to hopefully find a reason to believe it, because I think Mon very much believes that Luthen was telling the truth. Mon might not know Luthen as well as, say, Cassian, but she understands the devotion there. She understands what Luthen is all about. She's seen Luthen do some pretty horrible things in the name of the rebellion, like killing Tay. So she wants the evidence, you could say, to take back to the council to show them that, yes, this is all true information, and we need to act on it. That is then followed up by another really quick scene where Cassian has to tell Wilman that Luthen is dead. And of course, Wilman was like the last, or one of the last, as far as we know, kind of true believers in Luthen, who was still really kind of on Team Luthen and would have, and maybe still kind of was working for Luthen, maybe was feeding him information about what's going on in Yavin. And so Wilman takes the news rather hard here. There is then yet another quick little scene. This one is in the control room on Yavin there, and Draven hears from somebody who is also in Rogue One, mind you, and all of this is setting up Rogue One. But Cassian's contact, Tivin, on Kafrene now is wanting to talk to only Cassian, which we know is kind of where Rogue One will start. We see what happens eventually when Cassian goes and meets Tivik. But anyway, on a little side note, I'll probably do a full video on this at some point, but I love all the connections between this and Rogue One. It is a near seamless or flawless transition between the two. I have watched Rogue One since, and it does indeed feel kind of like a continuation or a finish to this story. Next, we see Vel do what Mon requested. She goes and visits Cassian and just flat out tells her, I'm here because Mon asked me to. And it's a great scene because at first Cassian is like, will you have a drink or toast to Luthen? And she agrees, and then they talk about how many people they have lost along the way, and they list off many of them. And the two simply kind of talk about Luthen and how, yeah, we kind of all got screwed over by him. He's willing to do some shady things, but this is real. There's simply no way he and Clea would lie about this and make it up. Then we see Clea leaving the infirmary. She's getting up out of bed, obviously not supposed to. But she's leaving it, and then we start to hear Nemik's manifesto, and I'm so glad this has come back around. Obviously, it was kind of a big thing in the first season. Cassian carried it with him. And here it gets used absolutely brilliantly, because here we have Partigas, and he's listening to it, and Legret comes in and is like, we need to talk to you. And Partigas is like, have you heard this before? And Legret is like, yeah, I've heard bits and pieces. And you can tell Partigas is being impacted by the words, and maybe not believing them per se, but he's being impacted. And he's very curious about who wrote it in the first place, because they've tried to get rid of it, they've tried to weed it out, but they can't. It's out there, it's everywhere now. And so here is Partigas in the final moments of his life. He's listening to this kid's philosophies, basically. This kid's idealistic philosophy about how authority is brittle and breaks, and the harder it tries to grip, the more that slips through its fingertips. Again, he's hearing this idealistic philosophy from a child, from his point of view, probably, and it is challenging and kind of defeating and destroying this old man's beliefs in the final moments of his life. Think about how brutal that must be, to realize everything you have fought for and tried to do only encouraged the thing you were trying to defeat. And it's so obvious even a child could figure that out. Anyway, Partigas then asked to collect his thoughts for a moment, and Legret allows him to do that. He goes outside. We see some stormtroopers waiting to arrest him, but of course, Partigas pulls out a blaster. He is going to fall on his proverbial sword here, and he takes his own life. It's then back to Yavin, and we see Clea wandering around in the rain, kind of looking lost, and we get the end of Vel and Cassian's conversation, where Vel is like, maybe you should reconnect with Bix. And Cassian's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Me being around her is just going to be dangerous for her. And she's like, maybe you really should. I think she knows, obviously, that Bix has had a child, has had Cassian's child, that Cassian has a son, but doesn't want to flat out tell him. That's not her place. And so eventually Cassian is like, when this all settles down, maybe I will go reconnect with her. And of course, we know that's not going to happen. But two people who might get more of a happy ending are Clea and Vel. Vel finds Clea kind of wandering around outside in the rain and takes her back to her place. And as soon as Clea realizes it's Vel, there seems to be some maybe tears of joy or relief that this is somebody I actually know. I'm in this foreign place where everybody hates me. And here is at least someone I know, even though these two in the past we've seen them at each other's throats. They don't seem to like each other, but I always kind of thought that's because they have some sort of history together. And Clea is even talking about how here I am and I don't feel like I'm welcome or wanted, basically. And then we hear the line from Vel, I have friends everywhere, trying to reassure her that yes, even though we've had who knows what kind of past, you are a friend of mine. And again, I think there is something more there. I don't know what it was. Maybe a relationship of some kind. Maybe not. Either way, it's to let us know that yes, Clea has a friend here. She is going to be welcome here. She will find a place here. And maybe it is just a friendship, maybe it's more. That's, I guess, left up to you to decide. Draven then goes and visits Cassian and tells him your contact is on Kafrene only until tomorrow, and he's insistent in talking to you, and we've got all of this going on. We've got Luthen dying for this message to get out. We've got Kyber crystals, all these sorts of things. The Star Destroyer is there, and he's like, if this is a trap, it's a hell of a trap. In other words, he is starting to believe. We also then see Draven and Mon Mothma go to Bale, and he's like, I'm guessing you have news. And she's like, yeah, we need to talk. In other words, they are going to give this mission a go. We then see that Cassian is having a dream about his sister. He probably dreams about her a lot, and I've seen a lot of people trying to interpret this as if it is implying it's a character that we know that is her sister, that it's Clea, and I don't think that is it at all. I don't think that makes any sense, honestly. Sorry to burst your bubble if you believe that theory. I don't think his sister was ever any character. I've seen some people suggest it was Dedra, and again, I don't think it was anything like that. I think it was always just the thing that set everything in motion. It was her that is the reason he was where he was to murder 2 corporal security guards, and again, that kind of sets everything in motion. And now what I think this dream is her kind of calling him home. I think she is probably dead. I think she's been dead since way back in the day. I think Marva was right when she said that she died a long time ago, that you were the only one who got off that planet. And maybe this is somehow the Force calling to him because he is a messenger, letting him know it is time. It's time to fulfill your destiny. And then you get to go home. You get to see your sister again, sort of, within the Force. That doesn't work that way, but let's pretend it does. We then see K2 waking up Cassian because he has a visitor. Bale Orana has come to see him and is telling him, your mission to Kafrene is a go, and Cassian is like, what changed? And Bale says, if I'm going to go down, I want to go down fighting, which is sort of ironic in a way because we know Bale is going to die on Alderaan. He's going to die when the Death Star blows up the planet. The thing that he was skeptical about sending Cassian on a mission to find in the first place is the thing that kills him. Either way, he says, Cassian, your mission is a go, and then he says, may the Force be with you, which I'm happy it was uttered at some point in this show. Very happy. I kind of wanted it to be in the last arc when he tells Mon Mothma to go tear the crap out of the Senate. But it's fine. It is what it is. It makes sense that, I've said before, it makes sense that Bale would be the one to say it. His daughter is, of course, Leia. He started down this road because he wanted to somehow redeem the Jedi that is in the book Mask of Fear. And so he is a believer. He had Jedi friends. It would make, again, sense for him to be the one to finally say it. And I think it made sense to wait until the very end to say it. We then see Cassian getting ready to go, getting his gear together and all of that before he starts to walk down to the U-Wing. And during that, we get a sort of montage of different clips from all over the place. And we'll go over some of them, probably pretty much all of them right now. First, we see Melchi, who is out for a morning run. It looks like some of the other Pathfinders are with him, and we know, of course, what Melchi's fate is going to be in the movie, as well as some of the Pathfinders. Then we also see Wilman having breakfast with Drina. We don't know what happens to Wilman. We don't know what his fate is going to be, but it seems like he's probably going to end up with a nice ending, and probably someday marries her, and they live happily ever after. Or maybe they die in the rebellion somewhere else. Who knows? It's then Mon and Vel we see having breakfast together, and we know obviously what happens to Mon Mothma. She's going to go on to be the leader of the rebellion. She's going to go on to be a big part of the New Republic, which let's not think about the fact that in 30 years that all is going to be destroyed anyway, that everything the show built up to is destroyed in the sequels. Let's really not think about that. Anyway, Mon is going to go on. Val, again, we don't really know what happens. I guess if you want to, you can assume she has a friendship or builds more with Clea. Moving on, we then see Perrin. He is with Davos's wife, coming home from, looks like a night out on the town. Looks like they are quite obviously together. And my theory for this is that, well, Davos probably went down after Mon Mothma made her escape. The Empire found out he was hiding her transactions, and, well, he probably got arrested, whereas his wife got away scot-free, and Perrin, one way or another, didn't get arrested or get himself into trouble. And so those two just kind of ended up together. Though we can see on Perrin's face he is rather sad. He's probably missing Mon. I know there is some information out there that there was a deleted scene, I think, where he told Mon that he constantly gets questioned by the ISB or by the Empire and is always defending her, that he knew all along what she was doing, which is kind of heartbreaking. Either way, my guess here for this final scene, what they're trying to imply is, again, that yes, Davos went down too, Mon went down, so these two just end up together, and they're not really all that happy. Or at least Perrin isn't. Moving right along, we see Clea wake up, and she goes outside, and she sees a life in motion on Yavin. She sees the Rebel Alliance at work, basically. She sees the culmination of everything she and Luthen worked for. I dare say I think there is a faint smile on her face as it begins to dawn on her that yes, I did this, and that I have a place here, I have earned a place here, and I have friends here as well. Then it's Dedra's turn, and we see she is in none other than Narkina 5, and as soon as the lights go out, she breaks down and starts to cry, and you gotta wonder, what all is she crying about? Is she just mad that she's here? Is she upset about Cyril, that she had something with him and threw it all away? For what? For the ISB, and to eventually end up here? Hard to say what exactly is going on through her mind, but it's hard to feel bad for her after everything she did. I love the character. It is a fantastic character. I rooted for her. I rooted for her and Cyril to end up together somehow magically. Because, as I've said before, I like to believe in the goodness of humanity, you could say. I want to believe people can change and become better versions of themselves. That is certainly a lesson Star Wars tries to teach us through the story of Anakin and turning into Vader and coming back to the light. But here, she's breaking down. Part of you expects her to just kind of get up and, step on the hot floor and end it. Maybe eventually she does, or maybe she eventually becomes a floor boss like Kino Loy. I think she'd make a good floor boss in there. And then 5 years down the line, when the rebellion wins, the New Republic rises. Narkina 5 is probably getting shut down. And who knows what happens after? Maybe she gets out and lives a normal life somewhere, or she joins the amnesty program, which we've seen other former Imperials join. Or maybe they think, maybe if they look into her files, they see that it says she was a rebel, and they believe it, and she gets to go scot-free. Or maybe they look a little deeper and see the Gorman massacre and try her as a war criminal, and that's the end of that. Either way, kind of a sad end for Dedra, but not one that isn't deserved. Moving right along, we see Saw Guerrera. He is on Jedha. He's looking at the Star Destroyer over Jedha City, and we never did find out how he blew himself up, assuming he did blow himself up, that he wasn't just huffing too much Rhydonium, and that's why he ends up in the suit and missing his legs and so on. Anyway, we are of course going to see more of him in Rogue One, and we know how that will end there. We also see the Force Healer giving him sort of maybe a knowing look, and him, I don't know, probably not wanting to acknowledge all of that, not wanting to acknowledge that he is a messenger, he has some sort of destiny. But it is fitting that she sees him off, if you will, because he is, of course, on his way to his final mission of sorts. He is about to give his life for this rebellion and to save the galaxy. He's going to play his part for sure in saving the galaxy. It is then Krennic's turn, and we see him looking out at the Death Star before the dish gets put in, which we see happening in Rogue One. Again, he's a character we're going to see a lot more of in Rogue One, though I gotta say he was handled fantastically here in this series. He's not in here a ton, but he's in here enough to really make that character in Rogue One a lot better. And if you've read the book Catalyst, which I highly recommend, it's an excellent book, fits in very nicely with the Andor feel and vibe, if you will. But if you read that book, you learn a lot more about Krennic and his relationship with Tarkin and why those two really don't like each other. Cassian then finally reaches the U-Wing, where K2 is waiting for him, and the whole time the music has been building, the Andor theme has been playing, and let me take a moment to say just how fantastic the score has been both seasons. I love this soundtrack. I listen to it, as I've mentioned before, I listen to it around the house, so it's one of my favorites. It's, not John Williams, but certainly it deserves its place in the Star Wars pantheon of fantastic scores. The final scene is then, it's B2 on Minarao, back on the farming planet. He looks like he is happy there, and you think for a moment that's where it ends, but it isn't. The camera pulls back, and we see Bix walking through the wheat fields, and she has a baby. This is Cassian's son, and it's a bittersweet ending, isn't it? We know he's never going to see his son. We know, or are pretty sure he doesn't know he has a son. Either way, it's sad because you know that, but at the same time, it does bring you a small sense of joy to know that yes, Cassian will go on. He will go on in the life of his child. And we now realize why exactly Bix does leave. It wasn't entirely that she thought that Cassian was a messenger and needed to fulfill his destiny. I think that's certainly part of it. I think the Force healer does get to her and make her believe, don't get me wrong. But when she says, I'm making a choice for both of us at the end of the 9th episode in that message, it could very well mean she is making a choice for herself and the child. But it is interesting she says that, and it could be that she means, I'm making my choice and I gotta make the choice for the child. And now you have to make the right choice to go and save the galaxy. And so that is Andor Season 2. That is the finale. And I saw some people, a few people, not many, mind you, kind of complaining there was no big climactic ending, as if the Bix ending wasn't really good enough or something, which I totally disagree with. I thought that was a fantastic, perfect way to end the show. But I have seen some complain that there wasn't enough action, or again, not a very climactic finale, when that's what Rogue One is. This show had a mission or goal of kind of segueing perfectly or seamlessly into Rogue One, which I think it does. And so it would have been kind of odd to have a big climactic finale and then go into Rogue One and that be another big climactic finale. You have to look at this as part of that movie, I think. And for me, I love the ending. I love that we get a brief snippet of all these different characters, and you can try and infer what happens to them. You can imagine, or you can have your own headcanon as to what happens to them. Like Wilman and Drina, for example, you can pretend they go on and get married and have a happy life, or you can think they die at the Battle of Yavin, or on Hoth, or anywhere else along the line. Same goes with Vel and Clea. You can pretend they become a thing and live happily ever after, or maybe they're just friends and they both die somewhere. Though that said, I'm sure there will be books and comic books that delve into these characters and maybe kind of spoil things, because in this case, I'm kind of okay with not knowing some of the ultimate endings of their stories. There are some I would like. Yes, I would like a Luthen book, for example. I'd love more of his backstory. And maybe you eventually do something with Cassian's son, though maybe you just don't. I don't know. I love the ending. I want more. I just want more of these characters in general. But at the same time, what we got was kind of perfect and should more or less be left alone, other than maybe a story here and there. Alright, well that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell me what you thought of this final episode of Andor. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you sad to see it go? Are you happy it's over and we're on to something else? Whatever the case may be though, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.